to the calm and cultured collective.
Welcome back, collective. And today, there's a lot going on. Like the news cycle has been wild, to say the least, right? So there's a lot that I want to get into today. But one of the first things that I do want to talk to you about is, the news cycle is hot, right? The first couple of things is the issues with the estates of Malcolm-Jamal and Chadwick Boseman. May they both rest in peace. So Chadwick Boseman passed away, I think it was in 2021, I believe it was. It was either 2020 or 2021, actually. Let me look it up so that I'm not just saying stuff. Definitely want to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so he died in 2020. Okay, so Chadwick Boseman passed away in 2020, and his wife is the administrator of his estate, and his family has filed a motion in court to have her removed. And then, of course, Malcolm-Jamal Warner passed away last year. We're just coming up on the 1-year anniversary of his death, and he had his wife sign a prenuptial agreement, and it looks like, well, it appears that he did not live up to his obligations as it relates to that prenuptial agreement. And she's now suing his mother, who I believe is the executor of his estate. And it just leaves a question, so many questions. And it's such a controversial topic. I would like to think that if my son passed away, and I have 4 of them, but if I were first to begin with, I believe that if my son was married with a child, I think that I would have pressured him to make changes to his estate. And that's me speaking now, right? I'm not judging Malcolm-Jamal Warner's mother. I'm not judging his wife, because I think there are so many inferences that could be made. But ultimately, at the end of the day, she signed a prenuptial agreement, and he did not live up to what was listed in the prenuptial agreement, which is a very, very unfortunate situation. And I can only imagine what his widow is now going through, because I think that as a woman, I would honestly question how he feels about me. And, because I think that things that from my perspective, I would feel like if he loved me, he would have provided not just for me, but for his child. Like the fact that he didn't make provisions for either of them, as far as we know, is very, for me, as a woman that's married with children. I have a child with my husband, and then I have 3 children that my husband helped me raise. My daughters were 4, my son was 5. So he's been their father. So I would certainly feel a way if there were no provisions made for me. And I can also tell you that my husband was in the military, so family planning while he was in the military was definitely something that we discussed a lot, with the deployments and with going away to school, and just with the fact that I uprooted my life to marry him and to be with him. I left my job, my home, and for a long time, for a stretch of time, about 5 years, he was the sole provider. So I had to have some assurances in place, because, I have to be able to live. It's just something that's so difficult to think about. But even now, like I've been back at work for 13 years now, and I have managed to acquire some things. I have all of my own things. Now I have my own retirement plans. I have everything, but our standard of living is still based largely on my husband's income. And while I earn a good income, he probably makes 4 times what I make. And I'm in tech for a Fortune 5 company. So my husband makes substantially more than I make. And there would be changes if something were to happen to him, because he's the principal earner. So from that end, we do have things set up in place so that should something happen to him, I could maintain the same standard of living. We have a child who we may have to provide some support for the rest of his life. We have those in place. And I think that this is another example of what happens when we don't take charge of our when we allow our future, our financial future to rest in the hands of someone else. And I know that because I have children also outside of the marriage, and my children's father passed away. It'll be 3 years in December, and he left provisions for our children, and he left it to our children. And I live with the notion that should something happen to me, I feel like I'm all that my biological children have, whether it's the truth or not. Like that's how I operate. I operate from the perspective of I'm all that they have. Though my husband has been a father to them, I don't leave anything up to chance. What they do when I'm gone, that's on them. But ultimately, I've made sure that I have provisions for my children. And I also make sure that there are provisions for me that I have control over. So it's just an unfortunate situation. It's very sad. The dialogue surrounding it has been interesting. I've heard that these women are gold diggers. I've heard criticism for Malcolm-Jamal Warner's mother. And in my mind, I'd like to think that because she is the executor of the estate, she has to operate in these parameters. So I would hope that the wife suing is just a formality. It's something that she had to do in order to free up money for his trust, and not of his estate, his trust, like to free up in order to access the money for his trust, because it's just such a sad thing. And I am working on content just so that we can bring someone on to kind of give information on what you can do to kind of protect yourself and protect your estate and make sure that things happen the way that you want them to in the event that you pass away. Because I've learned so much in the last year. Like, I live in Texas, and I've learned the importance of having a transfer on death deed, because so many people don't know that generational wealth is lost because we don't make those provisions, right? So say my husband, if we own a home together, and, Texas is a community property state, so it's 50-50 no matter what. So in the event that I pass away, um, if I pass away, and if I have a will and say that I want my children to have my 50 of the home, and I could be misquoting this. We'll get a clarification on it when I have my guest, but this is just my understanding of it, and I'm not a professional. So if I were to pass away and I have a will saying that my children get 50% of, they get my portion of the home. If my husband remarries and he passes away, his wife could remain in the home, and then she could remarry again. And then if she passes away, that man could stay in the home. My children could never see the proceeds of this house. So with the transfer on death deed, when I die, the deed that's in my name, like the 50% will transfer to my kids. So they will always have a stake, which means they would also be responsible for 50% of the upkeep, the maintenance, and all of the above. But they could not be displaced. Like, their wealth could not be, another woman could not live here indefinitely, or another man could not live here indefinitely. So yeah, so there are things that you can do to protect your assets, to protect your generational wealth, to protect your legacy. And I am determined to make sure that we are all aware of what those options are. So I'm working on that.
Welcome to the Calm and Cultured